Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 23rd and tonight's movie is Creep. First released in 2014, Creep, also known as Peach Fuzz, is a found footage horror movie. And this actually got pretty well received by critics. It has one of the highest scores on Rotten Tomatoes out of all 31 movies on this list. The IMDb score is kind of average, but I was interested. I watched it and I didn't really like it. It's getting a 4 out of 10 from me. Creep is about this guy named Aaron who takes a job on Craigslist. Personally, that's like red flag number 1. The job is with a guy who lives up in the mountains. His name is Joseph, and it's basically to follow him around and like film all the stuff he does for a day. He says that he has cancer. He says that he has a brain tumor the size of a baseball, which already sounds like a lie, but whatever. And his wife is pregnant, so he wanted to make this video to show to his future son in case he doesn't make it. From pretty much the very beginning, there's something strange about Joseph. His facial expressions, his body language, the way that he talks, all of it, there's just something really off about him. And the entire movie is just him getting more and more weird until something really dark is revealed. Now, this is a fine idea for a horror movie, especially a found footage one. In fact, the setup of this is very similar to the setup in The Visit, which I absolutely loved. But it's not executed very well here. The first problem is, when they're building it up, there are way too many jump scares. There's like 10 times where Joseph like runs off, or like goes into a building, then Aaron walks in, then he does the jump out and go boo thing, and it's just so annoying, and he just keeps doing it. It's not scary, it's just annoying. Another thing is that I do have to give credit to the actor who played Joseph. He does his job very well, but I think he does his job too well. It is way too obvious, way too soon that this guy kills people for fun. It kind of takes away from it when you just think, I would have run away by now. I definitely would have left at the point where he asks Aaron to go get something from a closet and he opens it up and there's this like gnarly wolf mask. It's not cute at all. It's scary looking. And then Joseph walks in and says, "Oh, that's Peach Fuzz. And that was a character that my dad created." And then he said like, it's really nice and cute even though he looks terrifying. That's a point where I would have started to think, I want to get out of here. He drops a bunch of hints that are about as subtle as an Uzi to the face. Like, after one of the 20 jump scares, he says, "There was a look in your eyes. For a few seconds, it looked like you wanted to murder me." Or another point where he said, "Hey, when you saw that axe in the stump in my front yard, did you think that I was gonna kill you with it?" As the movie goes on, it's just more and more baffling why Aaron hasn't run away by now. In The Visit, there definitely was something very strange about the grandparents from the get-go, but the way it was done, it was so that you can't really tell if the weirdness was actually something dangerous. It could have been dangerous, but it also could have been something innocuous. But of course, by the end, it's revealed that it was more dangerous than you would have ever predicted. In Creep, there's no doubt put into the viewer's mind. This guy is a serial killer. He's a psycho. And I have no idea why Aaron just keeps going with it. He keeps brushing off the weirdest, most obvious things. I will say that there were a few good moments with this craziness. It's revealed pretty quickly that Joseph is a pathological liar. So that makes you look back on a lot of the stories he tells, like the Peach Fuzz story, for example. But there's this really long scene where he tells Aaron to turn off the camera, and he does turn it off, but the mic's still on, so you hear him tell this very, very messed up story about something that he did to his wife. And it's a lot like when the Joker talks about how he got his scars in The Dark Knight. You almost know for certain that he's lying, but it's a very interesting look into their mind when you hear them tell these stories, like what they come up with and how they choose to tell that story. I have to admit, that was pretty interesting. Now, by the end of the day, he does, make moves to want to leave, but Joseph keeps, pushing and prodding, and he tells him to come in for a drink, and in that case, I would have flat out refused, but of course, Aaron decides to go in, and then we get some more stuff, and then some really weird, dark stuff starts happening. Now, I will say there are two good scares in this movie. I don't think it's worth watching the whole thing just for those two scares, so I'll just talk about them now. The second best scare happens a little bit later in the movie. After that day, Joseph starts like stalking Aaron, like sending stuff to his house, doing a bunch of creepy stuff. And there's a scene where Aaron hears something go bump in the night, so he gets up, gets a knife, and he's like standing around. And then he just stands there for like 10 or 20 seconds, and then he moves, and then you see Joseph standing in the doorway behind him. That was pretty effective for me. But the best and most memorable scare in the entire movie happens earlier. They wasted it like halfway through the movie. It comes to the point where Aaron is just full on, I'm getting out of here right now. And then he goes down the stairs. Like before that, Joseph had done another one of his jump scares. Then he just like quickly just bolts out of the room and down the stairs. And then Aaron starts making a move to leave, then he goes down the stairs, and then he sees Joseph standing in the doorway, clearly blocking it, and he's wearing the peach fuzz mask. Now, for this entire scene, Joseph doesn't actually say a single word. Aaron says, please let me leave, and then he like slowly shakes his head, and he says, why are you doing this? Do you just want to scare me? And then he slowly nods, and then he starts like growling like a wolf, and it just keeps going, and then he starts doing this really weird, like, obviously very sexualized swaying of the hips, and then he starts growling louder and louder, and I thought that was really good because with pretty much just body language, he was able to get across a lot. Throughout the entire movie, there was also like an air of a sexual pervert, like a pederast or something in him, but at that point, he was able to communicate with pretty much just body language. I want to rape you, and then murder you, and then probably rape you again. That was a really effective moment. And with it, you don't see his facial expressions. He's covered up by the mask. You just hear him growling. You have no idea what's going in his head. You don't know his thought process. It's a lot like interacting with a wild animal. You see him turn into the wolf in that scene. But they went and blew the best moments like halfway through the movie. The rest of the movie is just him doing creepy stuff around Aaron's house. There were some effective, scary things in Creep, but more than that, there were a lot of clumsy moments, there were a lot of annoying moments, there were a lot of stupid moments. Like, I think we have actually reached the descent level of stupid lead here, because just the stuff that Aaron is willing to look past is absolutely ridiculous. If you like this kind of stuff, I would more recommend watching The Visit, because it's pretty much the same thing except done a lot better. Creep was mostly not a fulfilling experience. Like Let Me In, it was very predictable. But unlike Let Me In, there weren't really a lot of things to distract you from that. I didn't really like it. Now let's talk about some spoilers. After Joseph does some weird stuff, like he sends him a bunch of DVDs, one of them shows him burying stuff in the woods that are in garbage bags, you never see what they are. He also sends him like a stuffed bear toy that has a locket with their initials engraved on it inside, and when he opens it up there's like a little music box, and you see pictures of them, and it's just a lot of creepy stuff. But then Joseph sends Aaron this video saying, I know I've been creepy, I know I've been weird, I want to come clean with you, please meet me at this spot at this time. Now, this could be something you could just turn in the police. And by the way, like, throughout pretty much the entire movie, he waits way too long to call the police. Like, after he sends him weird stuff in the mail, he tries to call them, but of course, it's a horror movie, the cops are completely useless. But I'm surprised that he waited as long as he did. I thought that this could have been something he would have turned into the police and then he could like set up a sting operation to catch the guy, but of course not. Like an idiot, he goes to the place and then he just sits on the bench and then he brings the camera with him to record the entire thing. This guy records everything that he does and there's not really a reason for it. But he goes there and he sets up a still camera and then you see Joseph walk up slowly behind him in a trench coat. Then he takes out the peach fuzz mask and puts it on and then takes an axe and then just bashes him in the head with it and kills him. And then later on you see him like record himself talking about how he really liked Aaron, how Aaron was his favorite one. And then of course he explains it further by saying, my favorite out of all of them. And then you see him put the DVD of that in this closet that's full of VHS and DVDs and tapes that have names of different men on them. So obviously he's a serial killer. And then the movie just ends. This was pretty much what I thought the ending was going to be. I was thinking about it, and there were two ways I thought of to make this ending work more. The first one is pretty much keeping the ending, but changing pretty much everything else. In the first option, they make it a lot like The Visit. Make it obvious that there's something weird with him, but make you question whether or not it's something to be concerned about. Make it so that you actually do feel sorry for him, and that you do think he really is a genuinely nice guy, but he's just kind of weird, but then things just keep getting weirder, and by the end, when he sends out that tape saying, "Meet me here at this spot," it would mean that there was a lot more of a reason for him to go there at all. But then the ending is the same. It shows that he's a serial killer. He's a total psychopath. That, I think, would have been a lot more effective. The other one involves keeping pretty much the rest of the movie the same, but just changing the ending. And I actually thought this is what they were going for most of it. And this one, be obvious. Creep it up. Make him as ridiculous as you want. Have it so that you have no idea why Aaron stays with him. But at the very end, right when it looks like Joseph is about to murder Aaron, Aaron kills Joseph. Make him the serial killer. Make him the one who makes a bunch of videos of him murdering people. This, I think, would have fixed a majority of the problems with the movie. It would have explained why he films everything he does. It would have explained why he stayed with Joseph for so long. It would have explained why calling the cops almost never occurs to him. This, I think, would have been a really good twist at the end. But neither of those happened. Creep is mostly just unfulfilled potential, I would say. I can tell that they know how to make horror movies. There is that one really good scare in it. But the rest of the movie pretty much fell flat. I'll see you tomorrow.